Hi, in this slide I'm going to give you sort of highlights of the history of corporate culture management. They didn't call it this back in 1910 when Taylorism, Frederick Winslow Taylor, you can Wikipedia him, his influence of stopwatch efficiency and dumbing down the job to the smallest possible task, sort of peaked in about 1910. In 1924, at the Western Electric plant in Hawthorne, Illinois, Chicago suburb, people actually went out to the plant and asked the workers, "Hey, do you think the lights are too dim? If we gave you a brighter light, do you think it would help do your job better?" And they thought, yeah, maybe they would. So they increased the lighting lumens, 10% or 15%, and productivity went up. But a couple of people started to complain about the glare. So they went out and said, did we turn it up too high? Well, maybe you did, and so forth. So they reduced it by half of what they'd increased it, and productivity went up again. But later on, they realized that what was really going on was just by paying attention to the workers and asking what they thought and so forth, the people felt better about their job and whatever. And it was more of what would call a hygiene effect. People like me and I feel better about myself, and so I'm a little bit more motivated to work, kind of thing. Lots of research over the years. Douglas McGregor kind of came through with a breakthrough kind of opus when he published in 1960 The Human Side of the Enterprise. And in it, he coined two terms, Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X is people are lazy and they're not to be trusted and they're looking to slack off and so forth. So you need to create very rigid systems and have sticks and carrots and watch them and, so forth. Theory Y is no, people actually, want to solve problems and help people and they want to be creative and they got a lot of energy. They want to use it in a positive, productive way. So we have to give them an environment that allows that to happen. Well, to a certain degree, the Theory X, Theory Y is very context specific. So, for example, in 1956, a guy named Ray Kroc franchised the concept of French fry automation from the McDonald brothers and started what became the worldwide chain of McDonald's. That is an old sort of Taylorism. I mean, it's you couldn't burn the French fries if you wanted to, kind of thing. Anticipating we have lots of turnover of young kids that don't have good work ethics and so forth. But in a global franchise of very simple stuff where you want the French fries to taste the same at 40,000 locations around the planet, you do have to have that kind of massive standardization. So that makes sense there. However, if you are a technology-driven company, you're trying to come up with new discoveries that are patentable and applicable and have commercial value, think 3M or W. Gore Corporation that sort of pioneered Velcro and so forth, and Gore-Tex. Then you've got creatives, and you can't, they're all working on their own little thing in their own little world. So you have to give them a different kind of environment that's going to attract them, keep them, induce them to turn on, want to collaborate, that sort of stuff. So you have to realize that and I gave you two extremes. And clearly distribution business, it's a process business, very repetitive. It's going to be more towards the Theory X, extreme spectrum than maybe to the Theory Y, which would be a creative advertising department, for example. But maybe another way of trying to deal with this XY thing is to look at the Blake-Mouton grid, which came out in 1964, and we will in a second. But we'll also look at culture in the McKinsey 7S framework, which got sort of promoted and publicized in the book In Search of Excellence in 1983. In 1990, Peter Senge came out with a book called The Fifth Discipline, and it was about 5 key concepts that go into being a learning organization. Because in theory, if we're going to innovate and be agile and change and take value to the next level, we've got to be learning at the micro, the individual level, but we also have to be learning at the systems level and in the profit center level and the corporate level too. Around the same time, a guy named Levering started to document best practices from the greatest places to work. So lots and lots of companies have experimented with lots of things along the XY spectrum and came with a lot of great ideas for what generally does work with attracting, keeping, and keeping people turned on. Most recently, Jim Heskett published in 1912, this year, The Culture Cycle, where particularly in service firms, you can see on based on how intense and pure the culture is, that you can measure what he calls the 4 Rs. And you find that very best employees go and find people like themselves and say, you need to come work at my place. So the best potential employees are showing up saying, can I work here? The retention of these employees, the returns on labor, because the longer they stay and the more skilled they get and the better they work with each other, the more the net productivity of all the people goes up. And of course, their output is what the customers are buying. So the relationship economics, the retention economics of the customers. And so he did some very rigorous research to come up with numbers to put to these things to prove, in fact, that very focused, intentional culture management does pay off. So that's a little bit of the history of culture, corporate culture management, and to point out that it is now more of a science than it used to be. So now we have to figure out, how do we apply it to our own businesses? Thank you.